Rajim. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillahi wa kafa. Wassalamun ala ibadihi allazi nastafa amma ba'd. Assalamu alaikum. In this video, I'll be talking about one of the marvels of the world, one of the beautiful universities of the Muslim world. I'll be talking about Bait-ul-Hikmah. Bait-ul-Hikmah was established in the 9th century by the great Abbasid caliphs. And the person who is really credited to have made Bait-ul-Hikmah a universal educational hub is Ma'mun al-Rashid, the son of great Harun al-Rashid. So it was the century, when we talk about the 9th, 10th centuries, it was a period in Europe and in the West. There was inquisition going on. People and intellectuals, scientists were not, given the freedom to express their wishes. So knowledge, in a sense, was suppressed, and the truth was strangulated. But in the Muslim world, at that point of time, there was an absolute freedom of and access to education for all the people belonging to all races and to all nations. And that's why Bait-ul-Hikmah was a home to the diverse nations and to the people coming from across the globe. So what was going on in this institution? There was a great translation movement had been started. It was kick-started by Harun al-Rashid, and Ma'mun al-Rashid made it to fructify to its perfection. So what was happening in the Bait-ul-Hikmah? So first thing that Ma'mun al-Rashid took upon himself was to give access to education to the people belonging to all races and to all ethnic groups. So the first important thing that Ma'mun al-Rashid did was to send the envoys to the great civilizations of the time, like the Roman civilization, or the Chinese civilization, or the Greek civilization. So at that point of time, Ma'mun al-Rashid was seeking for the manuscripts of those great civilizations. Like, for example, you might be knowing about the great works of Plato and Aristotle. So the books of these two great minds were bought, their manuscripts were bought, and they were brought back to the institution of Bait-ul-Hikmah, the House of Wisdom in Baghdad, and their works were translated into Arabic. They were critiqued, they were reformed, and a lot was learned from those great heads of their own time. Not only this, some books were bought from India with the goodwill of the rulers here in India, as happened with other civilizations. The Greek manuscripts, the Roman manuscripts, and the Indian manuscripts were brought to Baghdad. And not only the manuscripts came, with them came some of the greatest experts of the subjects who could translate these books into Arabic, or who could help the Arabs to make a translation of those scripts, so that the Muslim world and the rest of the world may come to know about their sheer heritage of knowledge, and the mindset that knowledge is not anybody's monopoly and intelligence is universal was the concepts on which the basis of Bait-ul-Hikmah was laid. So in that period, the translation works were done, the material was thought, it was evaluated, it was assessed, it was modified, it was reformed, and then it was translated in according to their best of the capacities in a perfect shape. It was translated into Arabic, and then the same material disseminated to Europe, and the Renaissance has a good amount of debt owing to that literature that passed on to the European universities. So, but unfortunately, there are little traces remaining of the Bait-ul-Hikmah owing to the tragic incident of the Mongol devastation way back in 1258. But the important thing is that a galaxy of scholars, a galaxy of scientists that emerged in that period belonged to different groups, and all the groups worked in complete harmony without any bias on the basis of religion or creed or color. So we see every kind of scientist, every kind of intellectual, having the full freedom to express his views and to give vent to his knowledge. You have Hanan bin Ishaq, one of the greatest Christians. You have Maimonides, the great Jewish philosopher, scientist, and a polymath. And then you have among the Muslims, Ibn Sina, Al-Farabi, and Al-Khwarizmi, and many others, because it's not the time to enlist all of them. The important thing to know is that what made Abbasids uh, to attract the people, the scholars from all across the globe, when there was not any curiosity about knowledge the way Abbasids had. The important thing has been, the good thing has been that they were actually working according to the principle of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, that uh, every word of wisdom or every deed of wisdom is the lost property of a mu'min. So wherever he finds it, he is entitled to it. So under that impression, the Abbasids produced such a beautiful university, and such a galaxy of scholars who revolutionized everything. Every science was revolutionized. You start from mathematics up to the astronomy, up to surgery, up to medicine. There was no field left out that could not be worked upon. And that talks much about the tolerance, the cosmopolitan outlook, and the universalization of education sort of temper among the Abbasids. So today we see that Muslim world is so what? Yes, I have to talk about that. What happened before, after this, when the Mongol invasion took place, and we know that the great devastation took place, but it was not the reason that there's a decline in the cultivation of sciences among Muslims. There may be other factors. I will be just talking about some of the factors that were responsible for the Muslims to go into the decline and to go into the background. First important thing is that when Europe began to flourish, when Europe began to take strides in science and technology, Muslims at that point of time were developing a sort of indifference towards those institutions. So the Muslims the first important mistake that Muslims made was we began to shun away from the learning of the Europe, because we made this a political conflict. The second important thing was that Muslims fall into the dichotomy of the worldly knowledge and the otherworldly knowledge. The other thing was that we developed a sort of hatred towards the sciences of the West. The another point was that we were reluctant to acknowledge the works of the Europeans. So we forgot that when we were at the top, the Europeans or the people from West used to come to us and learn from us, and when they learned and began to excel more than us, we begin to feel some sort of a bit of snatching of power. So the real thing was not that, actually that thing. Another thing was that we then became when we saw that Europe have been developing so fast, and they have made such a great contribution in science and in literature and other things, we begin to feel apologetic, and we begin to defend our views, that we begin to live in the past, that we were glorious, and we never tried to regain that glory, because it has been very well said that people who don't learn from history are bound to repeat that. So the decline was not because of only that we lost the great treasure of books, but the important thing was we developed a mindset, or we deviated from that mindset on which Mamun and his successors were trying to make us to remain on that mindset and that psychology. We became indifferent towards that thing. So again, there is not something that we can't regain our lost status. We can, and the important thing is that we don't have to make ourselves as a rival. We have to partake in the benefit of the humanity for the welfare of the humanity. We have to become part of the welfare scheme, not to do the sciences apart from the other parts of the world. So we have to live and we have to work in cooperation with people belonging to other groups and other religions. Xenophobia has no place in Islam. We can't hate any nation based on some narrow mindset and based on some trufflings. So we have to be broad, visionary, and we have to believe that we can critique the works of the West of the Europe, but we have to develop the capacity of that type. And besides, we have to acknowledge their works, we have to cherish their works, and last but not least, we have to reevaluate and evaluate our education. Our education is considerably suffering from the materialistic pursuits. We have to rise above the materialistic pursuits. I know that I have not been able to make the clear and exhaustive discussion on the topic, and there have been many errors as well. But in the next lecture, I will try to overcome all these shortcomings.